But ask now the beasts, and they shall teach thee, and the fowls of the air, and they shall tell thee. Or speak to the earth, and it shall teach thee, and the fishes of the sea shall declare unto thee. Job 12, verse 7 and 8. The Bible says we must go to the animals. Therefore, let us go to the ant. Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provideth her meat in the summer, gathers her food in the harvest. Proverbs 6, verse 6 through 8.
Hello, my name is Catherine, and I'm so happy that you're interested in home canning. I personally want you to know that home canning is fun, easy, and very rewarding, not to mention delicious when it's 0 degrees outside. I want to show you the basic home canning equipment that you're going to need, and then I'm going to show you the equipment that you more than likely have on hand in your kitchen already. A good pressure canner, a steam canner for those high acid foods. We choose a steam canner because we believe it to be energy and time efficient. Jars, lids and rings, jar lifter, funnel, and a little one with a magnet on it that helps you get those lids out of the hot water. And you're going to need a good instructional book, whether it be Ball, Kerr, or just an old friend you know that's been canning for a long time. This is a water bath canner. You may choose to use this over the steam canner for your high acid foods. This is a stock pot. This is what I use to make all my syrups and heat up all that water. When I make my syrup, I like to use a pure unfiltered honey. If I can't get pure unfiltered honey, I use organic unrefined cane sugar. This is a special canning and pickling salt. This is just a salt that doesn't have any anti-caking agent or iodine added. The rest of the items on the table, like I stated earlier, are just items that you should already have in your kitchen. Have fun with us as we now begin the journey to home canning. We're going to wash about 7 jars for you first. Each canner load holds 7 quarts, but I normally estimate how many jars I'm going to need with the amount of fruit that I have. A bushel of pears gives you about 28 quarts. You're going to prepare some warm soapy water, and I think most of us know how to wash dishes, but you're going to have to go around the rims, go inside. These are wide mouth jars, and they're a little bit easier to wash, okay, because you can get your hand right in there. If you're using a regular mouth jar, you might have to use a knife or a special utensil that gets right down in there. But before I go any further, I want you, before you wash your jars, you need to examine your jars to make sure there's no nicks. And you take your finger and you go all the way around the rim. And you want to make sure, or your jars won't seal, okay? A lot of times my son, he'll check all those for me before he brings me the jars, because a lot of our jars we've used over and over. All these jars are good. I'm going to wash them in my warm soapy water. They were washed before, but I always like to go back through and do them again. So it's just really a quick run through to get off any dust or anything. Okay? So what we're going to do is you're going to get all the jars you need for the produce you have, like I stated. Make sure your dish drainer and counter is cleared. By the time this is over, most of this will be filled with the jars that I'm going to use. Benjamin?
Hi.
What do you have there in the box?
Well, these are some pears that we picked from our tree.
And what are you going to do with all those pears?
Well, we do different things with them, like eat some, can some.
Well, how do you do that?
Well, we're going to show you all step by step, so we're going to show you in a little while.
Okay, well, thank you, Benjamin. I'll see you in a little bit.
These are the pears that we just showed you, and we're going to put them over here in this water. We're going to put them here in this water, And there's different kind of stuff you can use. You can use
baking soda and veggie wash, but right now we're just using
veggie wash. Now I'm gonna rub them, make sure there's no stuff, no dirt or nothing on them, and put them over there to rinse them.
Have to make sure you get off all the stuff. And it's good to always wash your fruit before you eat it or can it. Now that we are cutting, we're going to put them in the water, the solution that Ben did with the lemon and water. And it's good to always take off any little blemish and the middle part.
And you gotta make sure all the fruit are uniform so when you put them in the jar they look pretty. Now I'm gonna take the fruit out of here and put it in the strainer. Now you always let it drain so no drip over.
After you wash your jars, take your fruit and fill it. I like to pack mine as full as I can because there is going to be some shrinkage. This is called the raw pack. You can heat your pears first, but I don't normally do that. I just get them in and I push them down in as tight as I can to fill them. In the process of washing the jars, I don't know if I covered this, but you're going to make sure that there's no chips or crack around the rim. And that's simply done by just running your finger. Normally my children check those for me to make sure they're okay. Once again, I just take it and I put it in. You can use this funnel. A lot of times I don't use a funnel for a wide mouth jar because it's narrow and it gets down in deeper. I like these a lot for my regular mouth jars. You can use gloves. If you don't choose to use gloves, you're going to want to make sure that just before you touch your fruit that you wash your hands thoroughly. You're also going to want to make sure that anytime you do any type of kitchen work, if you have long hair, you're going to make sure you're going to put it up in a hairnet or keep it covered so you don't get any hair in your food that you've processed or even cooked if you're not even canning. I like to wear an apron and keep the front of my clothes protected. When I leave the kitchen, go into the bathroom, go outside or whatever, I take off my apron and leave it in the kitchen. Now, these are the pears that we're filling. We have 3. It takes 7. Benjamin and Lydia more than likely have more pears for me over there. This is something the children can do. But the reason I'm doing it is when we work together as teamwork, we can get it done much faster. A lot of times Benjamin will cut and Liddy will fill, or Liddy will cut and Ben will fill, or even my cameraman who's behind the camera right now, he will cut and he will fill. But right now, the children are cutting, Timothy is taping, and I am filling. And you just pack it down in. And they have done it and I have cut. So it doesn't matter. As long as you all work together and everybody knows what they're doing, and it's going to be done to the glory of God. Okay? You can put the funnel on this, but I find that since it's a wide mouth jar, sometimes it gets a bit tricky. So I would rather just carefully put it in this way. You're going to take the fluid and you're going to fill it to the line right there. Take a cloth that's dampened, run it over the rim to make sure that no food particles are on it. Lift up one of your lids that's been in the hot water. Put it on. Tighten it. Now you're going to be careful because your jars are hot, your syrup's hot. Tighten it. Put it in the canner. And you're just going to repeat that 6 more times. I'm going to do one more for the camera to show you. You have your jars filled. Take your syrup. Do it slowly because you can overfill. Be careful because this is extremely hot. The children are capable of doing this, but make sure they have supervision. Again, take your lid out, put it on, take your ring, screw it on, put it in the canner. Okay, here's our canner load, full and ready to be processed. 7 quarts. What I'm going to do is put the lid over the steam canner, line up the handles with one another to where the orange tag with the hole is facing me. I'm going to process it for the same amount of time that I would process a water bath canner. When it starts steaming out, then I'm going to begin to time it. If you use a water bath canner, you will begin to the processing time when the water starts to boil. Okay, when this begins to steam out, I'm going to start the processing time. The processing time for pears is 25 minutes. For pints, it's 20 minutes. What I have done is I turned the fire up from when I had the jar sitting there just getting hot. When it reaches the time when I'm going to start processing, I'm going to let that steam out for about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to turn down the control on the fire to help keep it moderate so as not to steam out all the water. When the processing is done, I turn off the fire and I leave it sit on there for about 5 minutes. And then I will take the lid off, leave it sit on there for another 5 minutes, and then I will transfer it over to my counter onto a thick towel to where it will cool, and then we'll go over those steps when we get to that. Okay, these are the pears after they've been processed. They processed for 25 minutes. They've been sitting here for a few minutes. What we're going to do now is we're going to take them out with our jar lifters and put them over on the towel. You can, Timothy, if you zoom in, you can still see some of the boiling going on. Okay? So I'm going to lift them up out of here very carefully. You have to make sure it's tight around there. And then I'm going to carry them over and I'm going to put them on the towels. And you're going to want to make sure you leave plenty of airspace around there so they have room to breathe. You don't want them to sit in a cold draft either. Okay, what you're going to do is you're going to leave them sit. You leave these jars sit for 24 hours. After 24 hours, you will remove the ring, and then I will show you how to check to make sure they have sealed properly. After they have sealed properly, you're going to wash off, and you're going to mark them, and you're going to put them in for storage to eat this winter. Okay, this is our finished product. We have taken them out of the canner, and they've been sitting here for 24 hours. We got 21 quarts. We got 3 canner loads. What you do now is you take the rings off. You go through, you do not store them with the rings on. You take off your rings. They'll have to be washed. And I'm going to show you just a few, and I'm going to show you how to check to make sure that they have sealed and that you don't have a false seal. I'm going to take off the rings. You don't want to store them with the rings on because they could rust from any fluids that have come up there, or any water from your water bath canner or steam canner. And they'll rust on there and be difficult to get off. You take them, after you remove the rings, you take and lift them just a little bit off of the ground. See, now this one's a little sticky, and we're going to have to wash it. And you lift them like this. And this lets you know that they have been properly sealed. Okay? After you've taken off the ring and checked to make sure they're sealed properly, you take a bowl of warm with slightly soapy water because it's sticky. And you're just going to rub all around the edge of the rings, down the sides, and you're going to do that for every jar that you've put up. Okay? And you're going to want to make sure the water is warm because it is sticky. And you can see some of the stickiness coming out on the cloth. And you don't really want to store it that way. Now after this has dried, we're going to label this. It's going to say Pears 2010. And then we're going to put them up for storage for this winter. We're fresh this morning. Okay, and I've rinsed it and I have it in the colander, in the bowls that I said that you're going to use for your canning. And what I'm going to do is show you that this is the pressure canners on the stove. I've got my jars getting hot, and I have my pan getting ready for the lids and rings to go in. The first thing I'm going to do to get it ready is I'm going to cut the tops off. What I like to do is cut up a bowl full and fill my jars all at one time. I use mixed sizes. It seems like I get more in the jar. You can even use some this big. And then you use some smaller sizes as well. The pressure canners also, if you have extra green beans you can put up. Greens, beans, soup, corn. I don't really do corn much in there. It takes a long time, about 90 minutes to pressure can. I like just to freeze some of my corn. That's the one thing I do freeze. I shouldn't say the one thing. It's probably one of the few things I freeze, because I can just cook it for 10 minutes on my stove and then let it cool and put it in bags. Now, tomatoes and okra would also go in the pressure canner. The tomatoes would go in the, by themselves would just go in your steam canner, but because you have the okra with them, they have to go into the pressure canner, because this is a low acid food. Okra is just prime right now. It is just really a lot. You must pick it every other day. I'm going to probably, on the okra, just get a canner load of okra to show you today. I know there may not be some okra fans out there, but hey, that's alright. This okra is so soft and nice. And sometimes you might have just a little thing on the tail, and you can trim those little things off too. And if your okra starts turning a little color, you know, some brownish, or not brownish, but blackish color, It's just that it's getting bruised. It's really delicate. Now, I'm going to just show you 1 quart jar. See, there's another one I'm showing you. It's getting bruised. But don't worry, it's not spoiled. Okay, I'm going to take what I have and show you how to fill this jar. Now, once again, you can wear gloves. When I did the pears, I wore gloves a lot of times because the pears are sticky. If you don't wear gloves, make sure you wash your hands properly before you handle any food, even if you're not canning. I think I've got enough for a quart jar. If we don't, we'll just try to cut up some more because it doesn't matter because I have all the jars to fill. If I have too much, I'll just put it in one of the remaining jars. So what I'm going to do now, since I'm taking it directly from there, I'm going to put it on a pot holder. When I did my pears, they had sat and cooled some before I had got them in. You're just going to take your okra. Oh, see, now I'm going to need some more. Okay, I cut up some more okra because you can see it takes quite a bit to fill the jars. In fact, I just keep wondering if I even still have enough. Yeah, I think we're good. Okay, now I'm going to push this down. You're going to notice if you decide to do okra that when you pour your hot water over top of this okra, it's going to float, but don't worry about it because it will shrink down. Okay? Isn't that just really, really pretty? I think I'm going to squeeze this guy in there too. Look, he said he's going to live right in there. He's going to be right there. Once you fill all 7 jars, you're going to take your salt, a teaspoon, and just put it right on the top. Or you can put it on the bottom. Okay? Okay. I filled the first jar and put the salt in it. When I do this, I like to cut up all the okra one time and fill it in my bowl. Fill my jars one time. When I brought my steam pressure canner over here, my jars are going to stay warm inside there. So what I'm normally going to do is pull these jars out and fill them all like an assembly line, then put all my salt in together, and then I'm going to come over here and put my hot water in there. My pressure canner is already going to be put on low for the water it to be getting hot. So when you put it in the pressure canner, it's going to be, your jar should still be warm. You're putting hot liquid in it, hot lids, and it's going into the hot pressure canner. And that'll kind of help with the temperature change in your home canning jars. Okay? We're going to follow the same process after I fill all the rest of my jars with the okra. I'm going to put on my lids, I'm going to put on my rings, put them in there. I'm going to time it. When it gets to 10 pounds of pressure, I'm going to start timing it for the 40 minutes. You take your boiling water, pour it over top. I've already filled the other 5 jars to go in the canner. Get your cloth, just like we showed you on the pears. Okay, you wipe the ring with your cloth. You can see how the okra has floated to the top like I told you it would. You just push that down because it's going to shrink down. Put your rings on. Now the whole time we were cutting and doing that, remember I had the pressure canner on. And now you're just going to set it down inside of here. And now I'm going to adjust the temperature. I'm going to turn it up now because I'm going to want it to gain some strength. I'm going to put this on. The only thing you're going to have to be careful is now your pressure canner is going to be hot. You're going to line up. You're going to do them opposite. You're going to tighten here. And not all fully tighten. You're going to come here. And then you're going to do opposite so it's an equal balance. Then I'm going to go back through and tighten. 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 And I'm going to go back through and make sure they're all tight. My weight is on 10 pounds of pressure. Okra needs to be done for 40 minutes at 10 pounds of pressure. If you're doing pints, you do it for 35 minutes at the same amount of pressure. When this starts gaining at what we're going to do now, I want to show you, this is the gauge. It reads at 0 here. It's going to go up to 10 pounds. Okay? It's going to take a few minutes. Even though our water is hot and everything is hot, you can hear it. It's starting already to build up pressure because we've never given the pressure a way of escape now that the lid is on it. It's going to be climbing up there in just a short period of time. As it's coming up to 10 pounds and at 10 pounds, then we'll show you what that looks like. Okay, it's 10 pounds of pressure. It took about 5 minutes for it to get to the 10 pounds of pressure. You can see the jiggler over here. You can hear it. It's letting you know it's at 10 pounds of pressure. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it at 10 pounds of pressure for about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to turn the temperature down to try to regulate it. I do have a correction that okra in pint jars is only 25 minutes instead of 35 minutes, so I'm sorry for that. You have to be extremely careful when you're dealing with a pressure canner. You can't release it when the gauge is showing it's in pressure. You really need to follow the manufacturer's instructions when you're dealing with a pressure canner. One other word of caution: anytime you're canning with a pressure canner, steam canner, water bath canner, don't ever leave the room and leave it unattended, because you have to make sure it's maintained at 10 pounds of pressure. You want to make sure your water doesn't steam out. You want to make sure your fire is regulated on your burner. This is going to pressure now for 40 minutes. I'm going to turn it off about 3 to 4 minutes before the time is up, because it'll still continue to stay on the 10 pounds of pressure for that length of time. I'll let it naturally go down till it goes back down to 0 on the gauge. And then I'll release these knobs, wait another 5 minutes after that, and then I'll take them out and we'll put them on the towel. This is halfway through the processing time. It's been 20 minutes since it started, and you can see the gauge, 10 pounds. The jiggler. And let me show you that the fire is not real high. It started out high, and then you kind of have to know your stove to know where you can set it so it can maintain the proper balance on top. And as always, make sure you follow the warning label and manufacturer instructions when you're dealing with things of this nature. Okay, we processed the okra. We took it out. We let it sit for 24 hours. And we've taken off the rings and wiped down the bottles like we showed you with the pears. This is your finished product. When we took it out, it was floating to the top, but then when it cooled, it has now shrunk down. You can see from when we filled it, because how I showed you, I filled them all like that, and you can see now that they're all shrunk down some. Okay? We've already labeled these, and we're going to go ahead and store these for our winter use.